Welcome back, everybody. This is Phoummala Schmidt. Welcome to another episode of Live with Phoummala and Holly. And Holly, I just saw you running back to your seat.
I know. We're having dog issues. We have someone at the door who wants to join.
It's perfectly okay. My dog is sleeping right now, so Ruby is just chilling, relaxing. I gave her plenty of treats.
Well, Poppy wants to be a part of the podcast, so.
Poppy is certainly interested. Okay, so today's episode, I know a lot of us have a lot of technical issues going on right now. I know you do, Holly. I did. Sound guy Mike did a little bit ago. So we're all just kind of like, you know what? Let's just live stream with all this stuff going on. This is awesome. Okay, so today's episode number 2, we are going through Azure fundamentals, the Microsoft Learn modules and learning path within Microsoft Learn. And we're going to focus on the Azure fundamentals. Now, the fundamentals are actually broken down into 6 learning paths. Originally, when MSLearn came on board, it was just one learning path. So in two and a half years, Holly, we've expanded that learning path, put more content into it, and really provided our customers, our users, our friends, right, the community, content that will prepare you to take the AZ900, which I've taken, Matt has taken, and Holly, you've not taken yet, right?
Yet.
So hopefully, after we go through all 6 learning paths, you will take the exam too. No pressure. No pressure.
For everybody watching, no pressure. Well, I figure with, my friend Lisa Clark can do it and score, get her badge. I think it's just incentive for me to follow along.
So today, we've kind of switched things around a little bit. We were going to show a quick video of us going through the learning path, but you know what? In the spirit of stuff not working right today, we're actually going to go through it live. And I actually wanted Holly to do the demo, but because technical issues, we're going to go through it together and show you what the learning path is actually about, at least learning path number 1. So if you see there in the bottom of the screen, once our sound guy gets it up there, if you go to aka.ms/AzureFun1, you can get directly to the learning path number 1 for Azure Fundamentals. So let's get started. Actually, Holly, have you gone through the Azure Fundamentals?
I have on my own.
The new one or the old one?
I believe it was the new one because it was only last month. So, but I say only because things are changing so rapidly. But yeah, it was last month that I went through them. So.
Okay, awesome then. To be honest, I went through this, say over a year ago, almost 2 years ago. So in preparing for today's episode, I went through them again because when I went through it, it was 1 learning path. Now it's 6. So it's kind of, I was like, oh, wow, the content has really changed. It's gotten a lot deeper. So in a way, we're kind of, giving me a refresher on the fundamentals content. So are we ready? Sound guy, Matt, are we ready to go and just roll right into going through the learning path? Oh, there we go. And so if you go to aka.ms/AzureFun1, you can go it'll take you directly to the fundamentals learning path number 1, which is what we are doing today. So you'll get to see Sarah Lean's pretty face there, and I love her Scottish accent. But so the first learning path, as you see here, it tells you it's about 1 hour and 36 minutes. How long did it take you, Holly, to go through it when you first went through it?
I would say easily the hour and 30 because as you're going through it, you need to kind of go back and I would have to relook at different content, whether it be acronyms or, what did this mean again as it relates to what you see as you continue through the path. So it's really simply laid out, but it will take the full amount. For me, it did.
Okay. So like I said previously, I sort of kind of went through this. And just to give everybody kind of a heads up, we will probably zip through a lot of this because, as you can see, it's an hour and 36 minutes for the whole path. And we're only a 29 minute show. So
Yep.
we're gonna be speed learning right now. In the beginning, I love this. I love it.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Poor
Poppy just wants to
Poppy.
be in the
Poppy
podcast.
wants to learn about Azure too. Right,
That's great
Poppy?
because she can know everything that she wants to know about Azure because you never know. In the future, dogs may run Azure. I mean,
Who knows?
yeah. Okay. So once you get to a learning path in the beginning, it's just pretty much it's sort of like the agenda. It just tells you, okay, here's what you should expect to learn. What basic concepts you're going to get out of this learning path. And then we do break it down into the individual series that we have for the Azure fundamentals. And we are doing part 1. There is part 2, which talks more about the core services. And then 3 is talking more about the core services, but also the tools that are within Azure that help you. And then 4 is about network and security, 5 is identity, and 6 is cost management, service level agreements. And by the end of the series, this season of Live with Holly, you should have all these completed. So let's get started with Path 1. And with Path 1, you see there's learning modules within each path. And each module pretty much breaks it down into there's 38 minutes in the first module. And then each module has sections as well. We have it clearly broken down into how long it's going to take for you to complete each section. And then we'll discuss the fundamentals in the second module here. And then we're really going to focus on the core architectural concepts. But we'll just go in through quick here in the intro, just Azure fundamentals.
And I think, Phoummala, for anybody listening that is just starting their Azure journey, what I appreciated about the way this is set up is when you originally look at the hour and 36 minutes, you feel a bit overwhelmed. But then the way they break it down into these little pieces, it felt a bit more something you can digest a little bit easier. At least that was my experience. And I felt like it did slowly walk you into the world of Azure in a way that didn't feel very overwhelming.
Yeah. So the way let me go back here. The way we break this down into like just little chunks, I personally like it too, because it's like, oh, well, it's a 9-minute read. What is cloud computing, right? What is Azure? And you could start a little section, and then if you get sidetracked into something, you continue on, you come back and continue, and you get these little green check marks. So we'll just start here with the intro. And the intro, if I click on play, I'm not sure if the sound will come through. Probably not. But it's just a video that actually, I believe, not this one, but the other videos in the modules, you'll see a lot of the cloud out of the kits in the videos talking. And for the intro, it's just, we're going to zip through this. It's just like, hey, what are the fundamentals? It's 6 learning paths, which I already said in the beginning. And why should I take the Azure fundamentals? Well, it gives you a foundational knowledge of what is in Azure. And it prepares you for the AZ900. And then we also talk about the exam and what the breakdowns are in terms of what knowledge you need to understand, and what percentages of the exam questions are what. Are we ready to move on? Yes. What is cloud computing? I'm going to click on this video because I believe not.
So from a different perspective, this showed me how much Microsoft is looking to how everybody learns and how everybody digests information. So I thought the fact that they did the video and then they would give you an example and then they would give you a use case, it kind of hit the fact that everybody learns and listens, communicates in a different style, and that they're doing their best within these paths to hit every different dichotomy of how people really ingest what they're reading.
Does the music come through?
I don't hear it.
Oh, darn.
It's really soft. I hear it very, very, very faint.
Okay. So basically, this section is what is cloud computing? You know, what what is it, Holly?
I'm sorry. You're really
What
going to put me on the spot.
what is cloud computing? The cloud is pretty much services that are services, features and tools, infrastructure that isn't on premises in your data center. I mean, it's everything
And
that
look at
you.
me. I could have answered it anyway. I should have just like taken a stab at it.
It's all good. I can tell you're nervous, and it's okay. But the cloud is pretty much what's not in your data center, right? It's all those tools and services that you are running, um, that you actually aren't really managing locally. So we just go through that. And
And I like that it talks about why you should move because right now we have so many people, especially now with COVID, being that it's changing the wave of technology and the way that we run. There's a lot of people that have been on prem for 20 plus years. And now we're saying, how about we do this new idea? And there's a lot of questions about like right here, the, reliability and, security factors. And I like that it calls this out to begin with. So you kind of level set, then you move forward.
yeah, and then we talk about the cloud service models, IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. So this module, I don't want to assume that everybody knows all the concepts here, right? I mean, I think we can all agree what the cloud is. And for the most part, I think we can agree what the cloud advantages are. Maybe not all, but I would say reliability, scale. Yeah, all these we can all agree on. Um, but here, so let's look at what the models are. So IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. IaaS is, think of it as your infrastructure, like the actual physical hardware in your data center. That is when you give that to a cloud provider and you're actually running that hardware, or per se the hardware in that data center. So you're actually not doing it locally. And then PaaS is platform, like running a Windows VM in Azure. So that would be, but I'm not sorry, SQL databases, SQL database, things like that. That would be platform, serverless functions and things using the platform itself, servers and storage. And then we're going to go to SaaS, which most people can agree is like more your software, like Office 365, Salesforce, any type of like travel scheduling, all that is SaaS. And then here's a little chart that actually kind of breaks down what you manage and what the cloud provider manages and the actual different types of models for cloud. This is probably the most important thing you need to understand when it comes to cloud in this particular module, or this section of the module, defining what is PaaS, SaaS, and IaaS, and what you're responsible for and what the provider is responsible for. Regardless of who the cloud provider is, this is the same across the board. And we talk about serverless computing, and serverless computing is like PaaS, where it is services that I don't want to say don't need a server, because they actually use lots of servers, but it's like functions and whatnot that you're just using the code to run that particular service. And then the different types of clouds, private, public, and hybrid cloud. And then we'll jump into what is Azure. So we're already on unit 3 of 8. I mean, it goes pretty quick. So this section just talks about what is Azure. Azure is our cloud solution. I'm not sure if we want to really drill into this for the purpose of time. but for the most part, we've got 100 services out there. There's so much you can do with it that I don't even know every single service that we run. It's because we're constantly changing and adding to it. And then to run things and work within Azure, we've got the Azure Portal, which is a web-based interface that lets you into Azure to manage your resources and whatnot. And then this is just a picture. And then there's the Azure Marketplace. And the Azure Marketplace is where our partners and software vendors, different startups, that's where they provide all their offering solutions. And you actually, with your job, Holly,
Yeah.
you want to talk about the marketplace real quick? What we have.
Yeah. Yeah, so with what I do for Azure Product Improvement Team, my job is to get technical feedback on Azure Marketplace and then share it with the engineering team. And so it's very interesting to see the themes and the trends as to what's working and what's not, and to see the maturity that we're going towards with Azure Marketplace. Fundamentally, I think it's interesting to see the way partners are using it in addition to the way customers are using it. When we think about the cost incurred by doing Marketplace and downloading an app, it might not be something just as quick as you would if you were downloading an app on your phone. But that's where this is helpful, because you can go and research multiple partner offerings in one-stop shop. And knowing that it's based in the Azure portal, you know that you have the Microsoft backing for each one of these offerings.
Okay, so I did while you were talking there. I moved into the next section of the module, and we're just taking a deeper look at our Azure services. And really, it's broken down into these common categories, which is, as you can see, compute, networking, storage, mobile databases, web, IoT, which is the Internet of Things, big data, AI, and DevOps. So those are the main categories where all our services, as you can see here, all the services fit into. And there is a lot, right? So I'm not going to go through and read every single one. I encourage you, though, our viewers, to go and, if you haven't taken this learning path, is to go through it, and then you can see all the different ones that we do have. There is a lot. And then we'll move on to now getting started with Azure and Azure accounts. So in order to work within Azure, you need an Azure account, right, Holly?
Mm-hmm.
Without an account, you can't really do much. And everybody can sign up with an Azure account for free. So if you are an enterprise, you may. This is where my administrator hat's going to come on. If you already have a TAM, you don't have an Azure space already or a tenant, definitely work with your TAM on setting that up so that your environment is set up properly. I've discovered.
And you also want to know who your global administrator is too. Like when we think about
Well,
the
that's
way
what I
we're
was getting
setting it up.
into.
Yeah. I mean, when you go
It gets
back to
scary.
when you go back to the first page where it talked about like what you manage versus what your provider manages, if you don't set up like you're talking about, and you don't know who you haven't worked with your TAM, and you haven't identified a global admin, it can get out of control real fast. Or by taking the proper steps when you're setting up your account, you can make it very organized, very streamlined, and very secure.
So if you don't have a TAM, yes, you can set up a free account. I mean, anybody can. But if you do have a TAM, I encourage you to work with them to set up the first account for your company, because domain name is critical. Getting that, and then the proper global administrator, all that stuff. You really want to get that worked out. As Holly said, it can be a mess. I've actually lived through it before. We had to wrangle everybody in and clean up some messes because we had multiple accounts, and it was Azure sprawl. Let's just say that. And then we talk about the Learn sandbox. So the sandbox is where within Learn, you do these exercises. And it's basically to practice the skills that we have gone through in the module. And we actually do some exercises. And the sandbox is a contained space within Azure that you work within. And then the case study. So Tailwind Traders is our case study company that will be the story of the Azure fundamentals. And just a quick knowledge check here. So Holly, got some time here. Let's answer a question. So after each module, there is a knowledge check, and you can't get through it without going through a knowledge check. So for the crowd, let's answer this, and we can move on to our next section. So which of the following statements is not true about cloud computing? So basically, we're just testing you on if you actually, understood the concepts that you just went over. And is it IaaS and PaaS are examples of cloud computing service models? Are we usually limited to geographic regions? Decreasing operating expenses, or the third one? Which one do you think, Holly?
In looking at it, I mean, I can see pros and cons to all of it. So it's kind of, it's well worded. If I had to pick, I would say cloud computing typically decreases your operating expenses. Or oh no! Hold on.
It's all about wording. It's
I know, that's why I'm rereading them all, because it is. There are different geographic locations where it is limited. IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS are examples of cloud computing service models. Public cloud, private cloud, hybrid. Yeah, I mean, this is a tricky one. I would say the one I picked originally. Am I wrong? I'm wrong. It's okay.
We'll find out. You sure you want to do this one?
If you want to switch it, we can switch it.
I'm going to go with that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sound guy Matt. Okay, so Microsoft exams, it's always about the wording.
Yep.
Okay. True or false? You need to purchase an Azure account before you can use Azure resources.
False, because you could do the free to test.
And in an IaaS environment, the cloud tenant is responsible for routine hardware maintenance.
False.
Let's check out our answers.
Yay.
Usually, if I hadn't already gone through this, there'd be like another pop-up that says, oh, you got these points. So, but yes. Okay. And then we go back here. Since I already done this, another pop-up would come up and say, move on to the next path. So we are going to go and discuss Azure fundamental concepts. That's the next one we'll jump into. And the beginning here was just, hey, Tailwind Traders. And we're just discussing the benefits of running in the cloud, the advantages and the disadvantages. Well, there really isn't a disadvantage. There are some for some people, but it's more about capital expenditure and operating expenditure. So CapEx and OpEx. And we'll just move on here next because I see our time is almost running out and I want to get to the quick demo. But we talk about the different cloud service models here and talk about their advantages between the IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. And then we describe the public, private, and public cloud. Okay. Which of the following isn't a cloud computing strategy?
Not working.
Okay, which of the following statements is true for operating expenditures? Are you responsible for purchasing and maintaining your computing resources? You're responsible for computing resources that you use, or you are responsible for the computing resources that you use for capital expenditures. So which one do you think is true? A, B, or C? I'm going to go with B. Which of the following options isn't a type of cloud computing? Distributed, and then which of the following isn't a benefit of using cloud services? This is tricky. You want to know why? Because of the word geographic. When you, and again, it's all about how the words are laid out. So we know scalability is a benefit, disaster recovery, high availability, but you think geographic isolation. Cloud computing allows geodisbursement. So that's where you see geography, but putting that word isolation in there just crosses out, because being in the cloud doesn't isolate you. In fact, it broadens your ability to run. So we'll check your answers. Those are correct. So we will go back here so I can get to the third. Okay, so the core architectural overview of how Azure is actually laid out. So we've got Azure subscriptions. So you have an Azure account, you have an Azure subscription, right? So in order to use Azure, you need to create an account. Once you create an account, a subscription is created. And inside that is your tenant. And once you have a tenant and subscription to manage those resources, and the resources are exactly what the word means, is resources, right, Holly? Network groups, servers, your firewall devices, all those things are resources. And then resource groups are groups that contain, it's a logical group that contains those resources, that groups them together. And then the subscriptions are a way to tie those resources together and link them back to an account. And then the management groups is a way to govern all those different resources. And here we just talk about the different subscription models that you can create, right? So you can create multiple subscriptions within your tenant. Once you have an account, you can, have a dev subscription, test subscription, all those, you just keep creating subscriptions.
And for people that are listening and they're wondering why you would need so many, when you're thinking about some of the private previews that we have that go public, if you're wanting to test, different policies out, or just look in your environment before you go into your production, it's really helpful to have kind of the canary option to go and test things out and see what it actually looks like in your environment before you go into production.
So this section here is probably a really good way of showing people how you can structure your subscriptions. I mean, it's an example of one, but it's like, like for each invoice section, I could have these subscriptions. And you can take this label off of invoice section, right? And you can replace that with whatever it is in your business. Like you can have all these different departments, and each department can have their own subscription or business organization. But it's just, an example of how you can, create and align your subscriptions within your tenant. And then management groups is just it's the way to manage and govern all those subscriptions, because you need to govern them. It's one thing to create subscriptions and just start, building resources. But if you're in the business and you have customers, you all need some type of governance. Everybody needs governance, whether they like it or not, or whether they know it or not. You need to have it to make sure the integrity of your data and your customers' data is secure. So the hierarchy of this just talks about the hierarchy of management groups. And management groups allow you to manage those subscriptions along with Azure policies so that you can create those governance plans. And then this section just goes into Azure resources and resource managers. So we just talk about resource groups a little bit, and it's a logical grouping of your resources that you put together. So this little diagram is great for that. You can use RBAC to manage your resources. Resource Manager, it's the deployment and management service within Azure to get those resources managed. So it's the management layer, which you can see here from the diagram. And then we'll move on to availability zones.
And I think we should just throw one thing out for people that are listening when we think about how you're managing your resource groups and you're configuring your policies and you're managing I just forgot the word, but when you're looking at all of the way you're managing your different subscriptions, that's where best practices are super handy. Because if you have all of your best practices ready to go, if your IT admin should leave for whatever reason, the next person that comes in already knows exactly what's been done and how it's managed. And that way you don't lose control over your management groups real quick. I think you would agree with that as far as a quick tip, right, P?
Oh yeah, totally. Oh, looks like we have someone from the UK watching us.
Hi.
We are both well. Okay, let me move my mouse here. I'm going to zip through here for those that do take this. It goes through the Azure regions, why regions are important, and we talk about availability zones. This is so critical to understand the different availability zones when you are using Azure, but also any cloud provider. Most cloud providers, I'd say almost all of them, will have some type of availability zone concept, right, where their different data centers are to make sure the reliability of your data and the services. And we've got Azure region pairs.
I feel like every month we're getting a new availability zone that's spun up somewhere, and it's pretty exciting to see that happening.
So this section, it just goes over from a high level of what it is. We don't go into detail of all the different regions, like you said, because we are constantly adding. But it gives you that idea, like, okay, the West U.S. is paired with East U.S. and Southeast Asia is paired with East Asia. And then this is the exercise. So each module will have, I don't say all of them, but most of the modules will have some sort of exercise. The learning path in general, right, should have at least one or more exercise for you to go through and practice those concepts. So when you get to this section, you have to activate the sandbox. It does take a little bit to activate, and we're just about out of time. Do you want to go through this, Holly, and run over? Or do we want to because this does talk us through on actually creating a web-hosted website in Azure?
I think what might be kind of fun is to make this a part 2 for Friday so we don't have to run through it.
Awesome. Oh, wait. No, we're back on Tuesday.
Oh, okay. Oh, Friday is just like the touch point. Okay, well, we can do it next Tuesday.
Okay.
I would just rather not rush through the demo. I think that's the best part.
Yeah, because so this demo pretty much just walks us through. It gives us all the instructions on creating a website, a website, which is WordPress within Azure. And what we can actually do is, for our next show, we actually will be going through Fundamentals Learning Path 2, but we can combine the demos a little bit and show everyone once you are in a sandbox.
What that looks like, answer questions, kind of dig through it a little bit more, because I think that's the piece that everybody looks forward to.
So we are. So once I clicked on the net, this is the sandbox. So we're in there. But for our next episode, we will get into doing the sandbox. So yeah, that was us just rushing through Learning Path 1, and we have 6 to do.
And that's a future Microsoft PM that just ran out the door.
Okay. So, yeah, our time is up for today. This was our first episode on
actually walking through.
Yeah, walking through a learning path. As you can tell, this one, and there are several like this, that a lot of it is pure reading. So you're going to have to absorb that content. But there are others that have more exercises. But so far, that's what we've got today, people, friends.
Short, sweet, and to the point.
Yes, it is. If you have any questions, concerns, or comments, definitely send them our way. You can find us on Twitter. I am can be found as @ExchangeGoddess. Holly?
And you can find me at Lehman__Holly.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for
Don't forget
watching.
Sound Guy Matt. Don't forget Sound Guy Matt.
Sound Guy Matt. Sound Guy Matt. Sound Guy Matt's not on camera today because he got his first shot. So we want to congratulate him. And he's feeling kind of under the weather, but we're slowly getting to immunity here. So thank you, everybody, for watching us, and back to the show next week, and we will continue on our journey here.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining.